We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Show Must Go On line. Today's guests are my fellow Broadway makers. How are y'all doing today?
We're doing
great. Yay. So we'll go around, unlike with Zoom here at StreamYard, exactly the box that you see is what is being projected for everyone. So we'll just kind of go clockwise here. Haley, why don't you kick us off? Tell us just like a few quick facts, who you are, your business, and any fun facts for yourself.
I'm Haley. I'm actually a senior in high school, so I'm doing the whole, I'm like super busy right now with the whole college process, trying to figure out what I'm doing and everything. So, and I run Broadway beads. I make Broadway inspired bead bracelets with my friend Melissa. She couldn't make it, but so I'm like, I'll do it. And I'm like, my business is just getting started, sort of. So I haven't gotten many sales, so I'm trying to like keep on working at it and keep on and get it bigger.
That's amazing. We are so happy to have you. And, you know, being a senior in high school and already getting this work in, that is great entrepreneurship and getting the ball rolling and combining your passion with that. And we will talk all about that. Everyone can say hi to my dog Slimbo. He will be joining us and leaving as my co-star throughout the day. So if that becomes a little, if the light bothers anyone, please just let me know and I'll go close it. But I found it's easier to just let him roam free. That's how you say it. Lauren, take it away.
And Himmert, and I run a website called RDU on Stage, and there's a podcast component and all sorts of live chats that I do on a weekly basis. And it's mostly theater reviews, theater coverage here in the Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill area, but we do cast a little bit of a wider net occasionally and speak to amazing artists like Fergie Philippe. I know you interviewed him. He's amazing. And so anyway, that's what I do. That's who I am. RDU on Stage.
And we will definitely have a chance to talk more about that and self-promote all of your things. Definitely at the end, we'll make sure everyone has all of the right handles for everything. Mia, take it away.
Hi, my name is Mia King. I'm the founder of Cheers Cards. So I make greeting cards specifically for theater-specific occasions, such as opening night, or if somebody's going on for the first time. I've worked in theater in so many different aspects, like as an actor, as a musician in the pit orchestra, as a company manager, kind of like everything. So one continuing factor that I found throughout all of that is that whenever it got to like opening night, I always had to just make my own cards, because that's kind of a tradition, right? We like leave cards on people's dressing room counters and everything. And I always had to make my own because I couldn't find any out there that I could just buy and use immediately. So I thought, if I have this need, other people probably do too. So that's why I founded Cheers Cards. And yeah, I've been doing it for a little over a year now. And I just moved from New York back to where I am in Austin currently to wait out our current global situation. So that's where I'm at right now.
Amazing. And so now that everyone here knows a little bit more about one another, how did y'all get involved with Broadway Makers Alliance? And is there anything about being a part of this collective of theater artists who also use their passion projects and use it as a business? I hope the barking's not too strong. Slim just loves to have his voice heard as well. So let's go in reverse order. So how did you hear about BMA? If you've been to the tables that we've set up at Flea Market or at Broadway Con, feel free to talk about those experiences as well.
Cool. So I actually was introduced to BMA through Jen Wheeler-Kahn, who I met up in Williamstown while I was a company management intern in 2019, because her husband, Brandon, was the producer. Well, he managed the producing interns. I don't know what his real title was, but he was always in our office, in and around, and his family was up there. They just had their first baby. So they were just such a sweet family. And I remember being just in awe over Jen and she's the founder of Scenery Bags, which is huge. And I just kind of kept in contact a little bit with them. And I reached out to Jen as I was starting up Cheers, and I just said, hey, can I chat with you just a little bit about what it's like to have a Broadway-themed small company? And she was so kind. I'm sure she didn't remember me from Williamstown, but she hopped on the phone with me for a while and told me about how she got started, what her advice was. And then she said, you have to look into Broadway Makers Alliance, because that's where everybody is. And that's where you're going to get the support from everybody who's doing the same thing. And it has been such a motivation, because we have little meetings every Saturday, and most of the time, if I'm feeling like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, or I don't really know if I have anything profound to say, I'll get on the meeting and somebody always will say something that just like freshens up my mindset and makes me excited to like try something new with my business, whether that's through social media or marketing or anything really. There's always something inspiring that somebody has to say, and that community has just been priceless to have.
Yes.
Wow, you just threw in so many key gems of why I love Broadway Makers Alliance. I will share my thoughts at the end, but Lauren, why don't you go?
I discovered Broadway Makers Alliance earlier this year. After the pandemic, I started doing all of these live chats and was searching for people to talk about mindfulness and theater and how we're going to navigate this pandemic. And I had asked Andrea Kaler if she would come on my show and do an interview with me. And after speaking to her, she's such if you don't know Coloring Broadway, you have to go look at the coloring sheet. She's an amazing small business entrepreneur, creative, but she's also such a cheerleader, and she lifts up all these other businesses all over the country. And so I reached out after our interview and asked her about Broadway Makers Alliance, and really thought, because I don't have a product, I just have a podcast, a service, that I wouldn't qualify. And she said, oh no, I think you'd be a natural fit. So I applied and became part of this amazing group of women, mostly women. There are men in our group, but the women are the ones that I've spoken to the most, the women and men, and just the amazing makers that I've met. And like I said, I'm new, so I haven't met everybody yet, but it's just an amazing collective of people who really just create this safe space where you can talk about being a small business, talking about being a maker, being a creator, your frustrations, your wins, your losses. And it's like a built-in group of cheerleaders. Anytime you feel down and out about your business, you can turn to Broadway Makers and there is somebody to raise the pom-poms for you. So I really value this group so much.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought up also, just like me, it's a service-based, I'm a theater reporter and photographer and podcaster and whatnot, but I don't sell anything per se. So it's good to know that being a maker doesn't mean that you have to be physically making something, that it could, you're making an experience, or you're making a podcast, you're making whatever. But I always like to make sure people understand that, because I had similar thoughts at first when Dr. Drama, Elisa, and I had the conversation. So Haley, especially being so young, how did you hear about us?
Oh, it's probably not that surprising, but when I first started, I was like, didn't really know what to do or like where to go with it. And I was just looking on Instagram, and Broadway Makers just showed up on my For You page. I was like, just looking into it, I was like, this could be extremely helpful. I'll just send an application and see what happens. And then I got the email back that I can join. And then when I joined, I found so many people that were able to like help me and like help me find my way and figure out how to run a business, because I am so young.
That's amazing. It just also goes to show the social media presence and the ability to connect with other people that now being in a pandemic is so tough on so many levels, but being able to connect with other people who have similar interests and jobs and that kind of thing has been really helpful. Just to share a little bit more about my experience with Broadway Makers, doing these videos and connecting with other makers is really great, especially like how Lauren and I don't really have a product to sell. Same with Rye, the news guy. And when he came on the series, what is time? Maybe a few months ago, let's say, we were talking about that. It's not a competition, that even though we do similar things, it's actually really nice to have people who are in the same field that you feel like you can just be like, hey, is there a microphone that you use that you really like this lovely microphone here. I got recently. I didn't have it at the beginning of the pandemic, and I felt like my interviews weren't sounding as good as they could be. So I got this, and having things like that, or the light or the camera, whatever it might be, or even just to say something like, anyone who's watching now who was like, wasn't this supposed to be the other day? My Wi-Fi, we had a huge storm come in. My Wi-Fi just wasn't happening. It looked like it was going to. I did like a test with some friends. And then, of course, when the time rolls around, it's like, oh no, this is just not functional. I can't hear anyone. And having people like the three of you and Andrea from Coloring Broadway be like, we understand, it's okay, we'll reschedule, we'll make it work, really took this like weight of like, I can't believe that I'm letting all of these people down, and you being like, it's okay, this is life, we're in a pandemic, we're at the restraint of computers and internet, and life happens. So I just wanted to say thank you for understanding, and also like having my back. I feel like that's really what BMA is all about.
Yes. Yes.
So let's go into, I like this Fergie talk, and let's start here with how you find your interview. I know. Can we just talk about Fergie Philippe for a second?
Okay, you all, if you haven't heard this man sing, you have to go online, find him, listen to him sing. Oh my gosh, what a voice. Okay, done fangirling.
How do you spell his name?
Well,
how do you spell his name?
Oh, Fergie, Fergie space L period space FLIPPE. I'm pretty sure. I'm awful at spelling, but I've written his name enough times because he came on the series, and then he was recently on my podcast. So I turn these interviews into podcast episodes, which is also much harder than you would think. So that's been a fun journey.
Hercules, he's when Broadway comes back, and right before COVID, he had stepped into the role of Hercules Monk and Hamilton on Broadway, but he's amazing. I had met him. So we are fortunate in Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill, where I am, to have about 65 theaters. We have about 5 professional theaters and a lot of community and independent regional theaters. And Playmakers Repertory Company is one of our professional theaters, and they brought Fergie in to play Coal House in Ragtime last year. And that's how I met him, and I became obsessed with his voice. We follow each other on social media. And when I started doing these interviews, I just reached out. But it's really me kind of chasing down people that either I'm a fan of, and I just, for me as a journalist, I kind of have gotten very thick-skinned about no, because the worst thing somebody can say is no, and that's it. So for me, I've gotten used to no's that I have no shame in asking anybody and everybody to come and hang out with me and be on my show. And I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of lovely Broadway stars join me and have fairly positive experiences, because my show is positive. It's not really about trapping people. It's not about making people feel on the defensive. It's really about me being such a fan of their work and wanting to gush over them. And And so the more people that have come on, the easier it is to get people. And normally I keep it pretty cool and I fangirl either before we go on camera or afterwards. Occasionally I have moments where I'm just, I interviewed somebody from Guiding Light. I'm aging myself, but I watched Guiding Light when I was a kid, and I interviewed somebody from Guiding Light recently, and I did fangirl over that a little bit. I was like, Josh Lewis just emailed me. How did that happen? So I have my moments, but pretty much I try to stay calm and cool. You must feel the same way because you interview a lot of Broadway people, and it's like, I saw you on stage and I love you and I'm in awe of your talent. But for the most part, I found that the actors and the people in this business are just the warmest, most generous. They're exactly how you would want them to be. I really have not come across anybody who's not that way. And they're all fans of somebody, so they really do appreciate the admiration and the love, especially now because they're not working. So
yeah, that you brought up so many good points. I don't know if you can tell that I'm just like smiling so strong right now because it's true. Like,
yeah, we speak the same language, right?
The one I definitely fangirled the most over, and when I made the podcast of our interview, I was like, oh gosh, I fangirled more than I thought I did. But Mandy Gonzalez is just like such a hero of mine. You know, she's so wonderful and she's so kind, and she almost makes it easier to fangirl because she just accepts the love and, you know, like is just such a wonderful human. And I told her this story, and I'll just tell a quick story here, that when I was a reporter at CBS 7 in West Texas, I was a field reporter and I had my morning segment, but then someone didn't show up. I think they had a dentist appointment or something for the noon anchor slot. And they were like, you need to go on. I was like, I've never anchored an entire show before. And they were like, you have 15 minutes to get ready. I was like, what? And I just played, you know, breathe, just breathe. Like her words, her voice were the things that like helped me slow down my heart rate and just calm down. And like, that was so important to have like that go-to song that when I needed to just like breathe and not be in my head because, you know, we're going live at noon, regardless of if you're ready. And I told her that story and she was so receptive. And so it's nice when you're able to compliment someone who's really made an impact on your life and also then be like, okay, I'm a professional reporter. Like we can now move on to the professional aspect.
But my one moment where my husband really, it was funny. I had a podcast interview with Kristen Chenoweth, and she's an amazing human being, an amazing performer, amazing person. And we had this really great interview. And at the end of it, she said, I hope you're coming to my concert and I hope you'll come backstage. And so I came backstage thinking, oh, she's never going to remember me from the other millions of people who interview her. And she took my hand. She wears these like, hand warmers, so she doesn't actually take your hands. It's like a bear taking your hands. And so she took my hands with these furry things and she said, girl, I read your article 3 times and you got it right. And my husband's literally standing behind her going, don't cry. Don't ugly cry right now. People are taking pictures. Don't ugly cry. And so we walked out and I like, you know, have my like, oh my gosh, she's my best friend. So yes, Kristen Chenoweth is my new BFF, but she doesn't know that, just me and my family.
I love that story. It also goes to show that, like, you know, they appreciate having a good article or a good series about them. Like, it is mutually beneficial when you ask someone on the series to, like, let them talk about themselves and promote anything that they want to. And it seems like you really got it right. So great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I was very nervous. It's one of the few interviews that I was actually shaking at my kitchen table, but she was just so genuine and just exactly how you would imagine her and want her to be if you're a fan. And she made it very easy. She was walking her dog, Thunder, and she's like, "Hold on, I've got to tell Thunder to sit." I was like, "You do you." I was like, but anyway, so yeah, it's exciting.
Wow, that's truly incredible. I want to just say a quick hello to my friends watching at home. If you are watching and you have any questions or comments, we will be looking at them throughout this episode. So Andy, hello. Tracy, hey, lovely people, hey, back at ya. It's so great to see all of your faces and names right over here. And this interview, though it is live, it also remains on forever. So if you're watching this in the future, howdy. So Mia, I wanted to ask about more with the cards and the feedback, because it's really cool whenever, especially like at the flea market, where you can see things like Dear Evan Hansen opening night or Hamilton opening night. I think I bought one of their like pens that Alex Lacamoire gave out for opening night, like cool things like that. But also now with your business, you're helping to be a part of that experience.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's what I made it for. It's just kind of like one of those things where I saw a tradition that happens behind the curtain. Like, this is just something that people do, but there wasn't yet anybody who like fully dedicated a business or anything at all to like specifically make something to help all of this like gratitude. If it's like gratitude because your understudy went on and did a great job for you or something, or if you want to tell your director how much it meant to them, it meant them working with you, meant to you. It's like if there's anything you want to say to the fellow theater makers around you, I want to make a cheers card that specifically is good for any of those moments. Because having spent so much time working in theater, I know of all the little different moments. Like anybody who has worked with me on any theater thing knows that I will write a card anytime I have an excuse to. Like anytime at all. But this whole time I just would get like a stack of cards that were just blank and then write whatever I wanted on it. So I just had so many ideas through the years of like different times where I thought, I wish I had a specific card where somebody could open it up, read it, and be like, okay, this is cool because like I've never seen a card specifically for this. Yeah, so I just hope that Cheers is able to help people be motivated to express what they want to say to the people who are right there along with them. And yeah, that was a roundabout word vomit. Did that answer your question?
100%. It's the holiday season right now, and I've been writing some cards, and I used to have this thing where, and when I say used to, I mean I still do it. So just if you ever get one of these little caricature cards where it would, Shoshana Cards Inc., and it would just like have a little image that I drew of us like at a show or in the field or playing with a dog, but like very like it's the same design that I've had since I was in 4th grade. It's the same one that I can do now. But I like the idea that I could expand on that with one of your cards. And it's like, okay, you will still get my personal touch, but here's like a little more of a solidified, eloquent idea of, this is what we're celebrating. So I want to stay on you for a minute and just say, like, with the holidays, have you noticed, is there any difference, any change? Has the pandemic affected all of your card making? Like, talk about all of that.
I mean, yes, because the whole point of my cards is that you use them while you're in a show, and like that's not currently happening. So I had this big like crisis at the top of the pandemic, which BMA members probably all would remember if they were there for those sessions of Mia just being clueless. Because originally I had just my first collection out. I have them right here if you want. I feel like it's easier to show people so that they like have the visual. So I have my like happy opening card, right? It just says happy opening. They all match. This one says a note for you, in parentheses, the good kind. Ha ha ha, funny. This one just says break a leg. And then this one, it says don't mess up. So see how they're like they're all in a specific like matching uniform type look. And when I started Cheers, I was like, I'm going to be specific. Specificity is key. It's going to be specifically this look. It's going to be like, you know how Tiffany boxes are blue? You see it and you're like, that's Tiffany. I wanted this aesthetic. People see it and be like, that's Cheers. And then the pandemic hit, and no longer could I really say like, okay, I make these cards for when you are working on a show inside a theater, because nobody's doing that. So yes, it changed my business immensely. I ended up making I added two more to my collection, one that said it's only intermission and one that says you still shine. So these are things that our theater friends can use to write to their other theater friends who are just feeling so alone. Like all of us are just so isolated, and having something physical delivered from your friend's hands to your own hands just gives a certain feeling that a text can't give. So Cheers has shifted a little bit more while we're in this pandemic era to be more of something that you can use to reach out to friends that you would probably otherwise be around in person, and reach out to them in that way that like only a handwritten card can do. But yeah, that's like a 180 from what I intentionally started Cheers as. So it took so much for me to be like, Mia, it's okay if you can reroute and make it like take what's coming and reroute your business plan. It's okay. You're not sacrificing specificity. You're not gonna like plummet because of this. But yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, well, you should be really proud that you took the storm that came and you adjusted. And it's tough. You know, everyone is attempting to figure out what this means for their business. And especially because you are also a performer and you have this, like, there's so many aspects that you're dealing with that I think you should be super proud that you found a new venue that people can really find you with.
Thank you. I owe it to BMA. BMA was like, so how is everybody adjusting their businesses? And I was like, I'm not going to for a little while. And then I was like, wait, these people are smart and they're encouraging and they have so many good ideas and I need to listen to them. So it's all thanks to BMA. Otherwise I would be doing nothing right now.
Yay, BMA. Yes, big fan. And it is just to touch on the point of the celebrations, and like when I got my 50th interview, it was like, ooh, like I'm gonna share this with the group. Like this is super exciting.
Yeah.
You know, and now this is, I have to check. I think this is 94 right now. So
you're almost at 100.
Almost at 100. I'm trying to think of like a fun way to celebrate it. You know, when similar to like the whole not wanting to fangirl thing, you know, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself and whatnot, but also like doing 50 or 100 interviews, like that's no small feat when you started it in a pandemic.
Yes.
You know? That's like 100 hours. So that's like 4 days straight if you lined it all up.
Yeah. It's a pretty penny a time, and I've loved every moment of it. So Haley, let's talk more about Broadway Beads, the response it's gotten, and being a senior in high school during a pandemic, what that's meant for you right now.
Well, I haven't gotten much through my business yet because it's still like the beginning where I'm still trying to get the word out there. And I try to use BMA as like a way to like find people to do that and help with that. So like I've found how Mia helped me with photos because I sent her some bracelets, which was so sweet. And I haven't done anything with it.
Oh, I was just saying, give credit to yourself too, because she took some awesome photos for me as well.
Yes. So I haven't like being a senior. It's been a lot of work, especially changing from being at school every single day to not being there every single day. So and especially with all the stress of being a senior already, plus everything changing, there's a lot of work to begin with. Plus now with having a business, there's all that other work you need to think about and find time for. So it's really helped with my time management and figuring out how to like spread stuff out and work on multiple things and all that. And I was going to say something. And I forgot.
Let it simmer. Let it simmer. If it comes back, you can just, you'll make sure to let us know. But it really is like we're all changing what we're doing right now because of the pandemic, and beyond just like having a job, being in school and having to do everything online and virtual learning is so tough, and it's not the same thing. So definitely, like Mia was saying, even with the photos, like give yourself more credit that you're doing this. Like you're alive, you are doing the best that you can. That is right now, like that's enough. That's like you are doing what you need to be doing right now. And I'm so glad that you joined us today.
Yes.
Something else just on that note about taking photos for each other is sometimes we'll send one another a product or something to take photos and to help promote. And it's something I love to do because it's fun to take photos of your friends' products and like help promote their work and just like spread the word. Like, I wear scenery. This is both their ring, their Beetlejuice ring, and the bracelet. And like, I have way too much stuff, but it's because I love what they do and I love their message. And like this whole week, they've been doing like the Scenery Week of Giving, that you donate to a nonprofit or charity. And you get entered into a raffle. Like, and that's all their own like products. They're not, it's all their own stuff. They're not asking for anything for them. It's all about if you donate to these other companies who really need us right now, then you can get a little reward from that potentially if you win the raffle. And I just think that's like really cool. It's a nice way, and it's made me start thinking like, because I'm in Washington State during the pandemic and not at home in New York where all of my Broadway swag is. Yeah, I've been thinking of doing some sort of like raffle, but I have to really see like what I have here because the raffle stuff that I normally could do is not in my possession. But that's life, right? We adjust, we figure things out as we've been talking about this whole time. Does anyone have any other thoughts before we transition to the next part of our conversation? But just like an instance that you felt stuck, whether it's pandemic or not, just like a moment where you really didn't know what to do. Mia, you were saying earlier about like, this whole thing about in-person events versus now the pandemic and those aren't happening. But either someone in BMA or a friend said something like a piece of advice that really like lifted you out of like this negative mindset, because when you're your own boss, when you're making your own stuff, it's so personal. And I feel like people don't realize that, Lauren, I hope to be at that point one day where when someone says no to an interview, it doesn't feel personal, because I know that not everyone will say yes. And I'm like, I know that. And yet there's always a part where I take a few minutes to myself. Maybe I make some coffee or like I take Slim out for a walk, because like, I'm not upset. I'm just like sad. And there is a difference. So does anyone have like any advice on that?
I think for me, the advice I've been giving out a lot is I'm a perfectionist. I really spend hours upon hours upon hours. The audio podcast I do is separate from my live chats, but what I typically spend a great deal of time editing the podcast. And when I started these live chats, because I'm such a perfectionist, I would get so frustrated that I would say all the time, Zoom is not my friend. StreamYard and I have had many quarrel. It's a miracle I haven't thrown the computer across the room. But I think to let go of the perfectionism and just realize that we're all in the same boat right now, and nobody expects it to be perfect. People are just happy to connect, is fine. And so as I've had theaters come to me and other artists come to me and ask me for advice, that's the advice I've given out to people, is let go of the perfectionism, because you will never master Zoom. You will never master StreamYard. The minute you think you have, they'll change something and really mess with you, or your router will go out, or there'll be a storm, or whatever, and you just have to roll with it and smile and realize it's not you. It doesn't reflect on your professionalism. It's just the nature of the beast right now. So I've had to let go of the perfectionism and really go with the flow more, which is really hard to do when you're a journalist. So that's what I've learned. And I'm not sure it's advice that I've been given, but I think being part of those BMA weekly meetings just gives you a space to breathe and realize we're all going through this together, and it's okay. It's okay to not have all the answers or not have it all figured out right now. So that's what I've gotten from my fellow makers.
Yeah, and that reminds me of something, just going off of that, the point about being a perfectionist, and also show what you were saying about having it just be so personal. Our businesses are really personal to us. And I know, for one, whenever I started Cheers, at least on my Instagram, in my captions, I would always be like, we this, and it's literally just me. There's no we, it's I, but, I wanted to, fake it till you make it, look like a real, like a multi-person business or whatever. And I never said anything about it really to people that I know, because I was like, I didn't want it just to be run off of like orders that my friends were putting in, because they like felt bad if nobody else was like buying my stuff or whatnot. I just had this feeling in my mind that was like, I'm going to do this completely like independently of it's going to be its own thing, and I'm not going to like promote it all over the place on my own personal Instagram. And another little element of that was the fear of failure, which is, it's in everything I do. And I think the fear of it not living up to maybe what other people expected it to be made me afraid to really ever mention it. I kind of like didn't want anybody that I personally knew to bring it up or ask like, oh, how's that going? Because I'm like, oh no, that's so much pressure. You're watching. Now you have your eye on it, and now you're going to notice if I fail. So that's a whole thing. But one time in a BMA meeting, Brett Shuford was there, and we were on the discussion, or we were on the topic of how you talk about your business as you, like as a real person. And we were just kind of talking about how we did it. And I think I was like, well, I don't really talk about it. And Brett was like, you should. And he brought up him and Andrea had a really good point about how people a lot of the times don't buy what you're selling. They buy why you do it. And whenever you integrate who you are into your business, that's when people look at it and say, oh, wow, this is something that I can really stand behind, because I see this real life person doing this thing that they're passionate about. And that makes it so much more intriguing than just this entity that exists that will send you things if you order them. And that that's what finally pushed me to finally post on my like Cheers Instagram, like, hey, this is me. My name is Mia. Y'all haven't seen a picture of me yet because I don't know. But here's me. Here's my cards. This is what I do, and this is why I do it. So it sounds silly, but it was a big step for me to like publicly combine my real life like person with my business, because it's a big leap of faith in many complicated ways. So maybe that sounds like it like gels more in my head, and I'm not sure if I like explained it entirely correctly, but point being, it's like a big step to claim like your wildest dreams, because the world, I mean, a fraction of the world is watching, and I think that gives me a little bit more motivation too. Yeah.
That's incredible. And it does make a lot of sense. We're making personal stuff, whether it's literally our faces on a screen talking to people, or cards, or, you know, amazing beaded bracelets, and whatever it is, it's like it's what you want to be giving it out into the world. And when you do make it more personal, it's so much better as for like the consumer to want to engage. But also as the business owner, it's like, oh, well, now that it's more personal, like here's a part of my soul. And it's tough. It's tough. And it's something that constantly is going.
Yeah, and I think that all theater makers, or I can't say that, theater is one of those industries where when you're going into it, anything that has to do with the performing arts, I feel like when you're going into it, a lot more people will look at it and take note. You'd be like, I want to be, if you're going to school like for music, if you're going to be an actor, people are like, oh, so that's what you're doing? Okay, I'm going to watch you, okay? And I'm going to see if you actually make it. Because if you don't, I'm going to be here saying, I told you so, or I thought so. But if, I feel like other careers don't feel so much of that pressure to like be successful, because
success.
I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I've always felt like going into the performing arts, I've always had to explain it. Like I double majored in advertising and theater. So depending on if I told somebody I was an advertising major or a theater major, if I said theater all the time, people are like, oh, what are you going to do with that? If I said advertising, they're like, oh, cool.
Wow.
We always have to explain it.
Crazy. Yeah. It's also funny now that you say that, you know, I originally wanted to be a sports reporter. So I would say I'm a sports reporter, and that would get some, you know, whatever. And then when I went to West Texas and I was a news and sports reporter, I would just say I'm an on-air reporter. And now I say I'm a theater reporter. And it's just like an interesting way of like the reactions that people have depending on like the word association, but also talking about making it more ourselves or whatever. When I was in news or sports, people would always be like, have you ever thought about being in theater? You're so theatrical. And I'm like, that's interesting, you know?
Yeah.
So if anything, now it may be when people hear that I'm a theater reporter, they're like, that makes sense.
Love that for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I did want to talk about, I love that we're giving so many specific makers shout outs. Like Brett and Steven of the Broadway Husbands are just so fabulous. I love what they're doing. I saw Brett in Wicked before the shutdown, which I'm so grateful for that we did that. And just like, you know, they're making videos like every day or every other day, and they're doing podcasts and they're doing TikToks. And like, it was helpful when I interviewed them to also realize we have different journeys, and it's okay for me to not be producing at that same level. But it also, you know, so many people have been telling me, make a TikTok or join TikTok, whatever. This is how clearly in with it I know the lingo. But I was resistant just because I was like, I film performances and I interview people. Like that doesn't seem like this niche. It doesn't seem like what TikTok does. But then at the same time, I start to see other people do stuff. And then yesterday during my interview with Harrison Bryan, there was something like, oh, you can really just make it whatever you want. Like you don't have to be doing this like singing along with the Ratatouille musical or a grocery store musical. Cause I love singing, but that's not, I'm definitely not a professional singer, but just like reacting to his thing. Or I watched Newsies last night on the couch with Slim, and there's a part, Lauren, maybe you'll appreciate this, where Carol Lindsay, is talking about how no matter how many times she writes an article, she can never get it. And yeah, right, so they say. So I love that. And I always relate so much to that song because it's like, I've done interviews a million times for years. That has been my profession for years. And yet I sit down to write an article. Sometimes I'm like, what should the headline be? What should the first sentence be? And it just felt so relatable that I just like sat on the couch. I filmed myself. I filmed her. And then I like cut back to myself, posted that. It was like my fourth take. I went from 0 to 4 in one day. So that's kind of the energy that I'm putting out there. And I looked this morning and it had like 789 views overnight. I was amazed. Truly. I was like, oh, so really just me doing what I'm just thinking. And when I'm not actively trying to be like, oh no, what should I do? What TikTok should I make? And it just like came naturally that was like responsive. Like people were like, yeah, we want to know from a journalist who's also into theater how they feel when they see this. So that was like my long roundabout way of saying that when you're with a group of people who you admire their work and you feel like I should be doing similar work, or I should be like, what's beautiful about all of us is that we have our own thing. We're all makers because we all have our unique touch. And when you get more in tune with what makes you special and your edge, then that's really what people respond to.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And yet what unites us all is this love of this art form that is a family. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. If you are a theater enthusiast, you saw Newsies, I've seen Newsies, that's something we automatically have in common, whether we know each other or not. It's like, okay, yeah, we're BFFs now because we both are in love with Jeremy Jordan or Carol Lindsay. We both sat down at the typewriter and been like, let's pray that it writes itself. So yeah.
Exactly. It's so cool. Yeah, I do love how theater unites us. One of my favorite memories was just like, I see, Haley, you have the Lightning Thief up on your wonderful wall of, I need to do that. I love having like a good visual of my love for theater. But I came home, I was on the subway one day and I had just come home from the Lightning Thief and someone had a Lightning Thief playbill like on the subway. And we just kind of like looked at each other and like smiled. And those are like the fun times where like, we don't know each other. We like had a few-minute conversation until, our stop. But like just the fact that we were holding the same playbill, like, oh, we were both at the same show on the same night. How crazy is that?
Wow. I always love looking at, like, if I see a playbill on the train, I always like try to see like what they saw. And also, did either or any of y'all see Angels in America when this nearest revival?
I wish.
Okay, so it's super long, and I saw the whole thing in one day, and I went by myself, so I didn't know either of the people next to me, but I ended up like afterwards making friends with a guy I had sat next to. Like while we were sitting there, we didn't talk or anything, but I think we were in the theater for like 7.5 hours that day or something. It's insanely long. And afterwards we were like both walking to the train, and we were like, so we just sat next to each other. What'd you think? And then we like followed each other on Instagram and stuff. And that's just one of those shows where you're in there for so long and you're next to these people and you're experiencing things with them. And that's something that is like, unlike anything else, that's a whole experience on its own. And I love that theater does that.
Yeah.
I do too. I think there is nothing like sitting in a dark room with a bunch of strangers or friends, but a lot of times I end up going by myself because I'm reviewing, and if I'm reviewing plays are a very hard sell. I have a very hard time finding people to go to plays with me, and so it's always lovely because by the end or by intermission, I feel like everyone around me is my new friend, and we can talk about the experience we've just had because nobody else has had that. Even if they've seen the show that night or that matinee, it's an individual experience, and it's just a beautiful thing. That's why I love live theater so much.
And, like, with all that, I've made so many friends because of Broadway and theater. Like, all these shows, I've probably met someone at that I still keep in touch with. I literally have a friend who lives in Australia who came to New York and saw a bunch of shows, and we met at the stage door, and we still talk here and then, even though it's a totally different time schedule. We try and find time. It's like, this is my community where I find friends and have so many people I can talk to and relate to.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
yeah.
such a good point. Oh, please, Mia, you go.
Yeah. A really impactful experience that I had earlier this year was when I went to go see. So Cambodian Rock Band had just opened at the Signature Theater. I actually think it hadn't even opened yet when they had a night where they called it like Asian American night, where basically everybody in the Asian American community in New York went to go see this show, which of course is written by Lauren Yee, and it features an entirely Asian American cast, which we barely ever get to see. We got a lot of it this year, and then a lot of it got shut down. Love that. Anyways, Cambodian Rock Band was one that I was so excited for, and many other Asian American people in New York were really excited to see. So on this night, like, I remember walking into the Signature Theater, and just everywhere I turned, I would see like people who I'd seen on Facebook or like had known of their work. Like, everybody imaginable was there. And let me tell you, like, being in New York and being an Asian American actor in theater, I feel alone all the time. I feel like there's barely I would say one of my auditions that I went to during the 6 months I was there, I saw another Asian American person, and it's because it was for a Chinese version of Spring Awakening. So we all had to be Chinese, right? But other than that, you feel pretty extremely alone. So number one, the fact that the show was written specifically like featuring actors that look like us and that were in our community was already astounding. And then to sit in that theater full of just like the whole Asian American community was there, and that was unlike anything else, and it was just buzzing with all this excitement because we were all like in the same place experiencing this thing that was a celebration of our identities, when so many of the times we feel like our identity is what holds us back. It's a thing that we have to prove that we're good despite but that's something that I wanted to share. Not really.
Have you seen the new calendar that just came out with the Asian American Broadway stars? Laura Haywood just posted about it. I can't wait to check that out.
I know. My friend David is in it, and he's been talking about it, and that's just, I mean, it's so exciting because it feels like, it feels like things are finally looking up, and it's just incredible to like visually see it and like feel it and be in the room where like just us being in the room and that situation happening is proof that maybe this is all for something and it's working.
Yeah, representation matters. Having multiple people not feel like they're the token X is, oh gosh, it's a big conversation we've been having this year. And I just wanted to get, I feel like this is a good transition because we have been chatting for nearly an hour, which just goes to show how quickly these chats go. I told you they go quickly, especially when you have so many wonderful voices. But I wanted to share, so I'll go last because I feel like if I share one and then you were going to say that, I don't want to take it away from you. So we always share a nonprofit or charity or 2 or 3, you can say as many as you like that you want to give a shout out to. Why don't we start with Haley and then we'll go around?
Well, in the beginning of the pandemic, when I was like, I need to do something in my business to help the theater community who's struggling, I decided that with every resale I sell, I would donate a profit to BCFA. So like I've been doing that for a long time, and I've gotten some where I donate. I've donated a lot to help because they're a great charity and for a great cause.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Amazing. Do you want to, are we going around?
Yeah, Lauren, you can just take it away.
Okay. I'm going to say 2. I have to give a shout out to a local organization called Arts Access NC, and they make the arts across the board, whether it's visual arts, theater, any kind of art, accessible for people. And so they really do a lot to lift up artists living with disabilities. They train people to provide audio transcription at shows. It's an amazing organization. I adore them. So shout out to Arts Access. And along the same lines, I love TDF. I think the work TDF does with the autism community and bringing sensory-friendly shows to New York, which has trickled down to our regional theaters. We're now doing sensory-friendly shows here in Raleigh-Durham, which is such a service to people living with autism and on the autism spectrum. So TDF is another one of my favorites.
Thank you for sharing both of those amazing ones. Mia.
I would like to shout out Deaf Collective, which is super, super new. It's founded by Gabriel Ocasio-Cortez, yes, brother of our AOC. So Gabriel has created Deaf Collective in order to bring together communities that are typically exist apart. So he brings together like people from the like queer community and people from the deaf community, people that exist within both of them and who are specifically, I think it's like an edge specifically on people who are artists. So a lot of times they aren't able to get access to what they need in order to really thrive. So Deaf Collective is pushing towards offering like low to no cost ASL classes to open up communication, because that's such a barrier sometimes, and providing grants and scholarships to people who need it. So it just is beginning to get kicked off and start off, or what? It's just starting. He just started creating it, but I am watching, and I think you should too. Keep an eye on it because they have such a specific and good mission that I can't wait to see where it goes. So that one's mine today.
Oh, thank you, all of you. Those are really fabulous ones. The 2 that I just want to talk about, through the pandemic, the Broadway for Racial Justice and the Broadway Advocacy Coalition have just been doing like incredible work. If you aren't following along, those are like they work on so many things, especially like what Mia was saying with representation matters. And it's not just on stage, it's behind the stage. It's, your writers, your directors, your stage hands, like every aspect of theater. We want to make sure that a lot more Black and brown folks, a lot more Asian Americans, a lot like, Hispanic. It's just, there's so many, we have such a need to expand who we are seeing in all aspects, and they are doing some really, really great work. If you have any other ones, if anyone's watching at home and you really love a nonprofit or charity, please feel free to message me. I love hearing more about them and expanding my knowledge, because I think right now especially, we need to be giving them a shout out and appreciating Cloth 159, pretty sure. They are doing some really great work with folks up in Washington Heights, and they have a lot of theater people that work with them as well. Anyway, there's so many great ones out there, and if you're looking for a way to get involved or donate or both, just check it out and message me if you need to hear more information about any of them today. We'll make sure to get that information out to you. And on that note, does anyone have any? Let's do one quick go around again, where you say where everyone can find you on social media, anything if you want to like self-promote right now, and then any final thoughts. So let's do it like we did last time. We'll go back around and just share all those things. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, you can find me on Instagram at BWayBeads, or also at nothing_but_Broadway. Just like that. Or you can look on Etsy for where my business is, Broadway Beads 22. You can find that through the top typing that. And there's a couple of listings up now where you can find some like a Broadway Strong bracelet, a bunch of Harry Potter bracelets. There's some Beetlejuice bracelets also up there, so you can find them there.
Awesome. Thank you. Lauren.
You can find me at rduonstage.com or at rduonstage on social media, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or you can follow the podcast at rduonstage, which is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Amazing. Yes, subscribe, listen now.
Subscribe. Yes.
Mia.
You can visit my website at thecheerscard.com. I'm also on Instagram at cheers.cards.
Nice. Amazing. So many ways to find everyone. And y'all can find me at BWay Show. That's BWAYSHO, like Broadway Show Shauna. Find me bwayshow.com for all of your Broadway show needs. We have this ongoing series and BWay Show the podcast. And we have a Showtreon. That is BWay Show Patreon. Fun times all around. And very cool to see people supporting artists right now, either through these nonprofits or through Patreon. Really, really cool to see that as a method of showing your support, because we certainly do appreciate it. Just like I appreciate the three of you for coming on my series today.
We appreciate you
for having us.
Thank you so much, Sho.
Thank you.
That's
and
the hour of my life.
Say that again. What?
Oh, I said fastest and most fun hour of my life.
Yes, victory. That's what we aim to do here at BWay Show. But it's great to be able to connect with fellow makers and hear more about what you're doing. And just, if anyone who's watching this is like, that actually seems like something I'd like to do, please get in touch with us, because the Broadway Makers are constantly expanding. If you have any questions, we're on social media, we have a website. So just definitely don't be afraid to reach out. If you think that you would be a good maker or you want to get to know more about us at all, just message, because we're always happy to have you and to get to know you. So thank you. Thank everyone for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you at the show.
Thank you.